Neal's Jeff Foxworthy video here. I want to talk about how do you know if you have an in-demand business? Well, you know you may have an in-demand business if your clients don't even know who you are. I've told this story before, but it's been a little while. I had a prospect. I never sold his business, but when he met me, I remember we talked about his team. When he described his team, he said, if I go to a company meeting, I got to wear a name tag. And here's his point. He had his team, he had managers, and then he had managers, and then he was at the top. And his team didn't know who he was. That may sound distant, but from a business acquisition perspective, it's actually super attractive. Business buyers want to know that businesses aren't dependent on owners. In a very layered structure like that, most companies or small companies are pretty vertical, but a horizontal structure like that is actually really strong. It just means there's a strong org chart. You got the right people in the right seats. So you may have an in-demand business if your customers don't know who you are. Number two is a great brand and a great reputation. In today's day, reputation means more than anything. Here, tactically, I'm talking about your GMB, your Google My Business page. I've seen people say, I really want to have that high star rating. The phone rings all the time. I've had buyers ask for, what's your web traffic on a monthly basis? I want to see the type of leads coming in through the website. How often does the phone ring? If you just got a machine that's churning from a leads perspective, you may have an in-demand business that other people want to buy. The third thing that people really want that creates an in-demand business is diversity, right? You want to make sure your products, your services, your vendors, your clients are diverse. It's kind of a silent killer, this customer concentration, this vendor concentration. We get all of our eggs from this farm and they got bird flu, as an example. Or I literally had a guy come to my office one time, and it was a very interesting meeting because he kept talking about how great his business was and he did so many millions of dollars per year. He had this great contract with this giant hospital, and come to find out, that was the only contract that he had. And that hospital had already been sold, and he already knew that business was never coming in again. And I said, hey, I don't think this is a sellable business. He said, I know, I just kind of wanted to hear it from you. So kind of funny how that works out, right? He knew that was a challenge. That was the most extreme example of customer concentration that I've ever seen. But it happens with vendors, with clients. Just look for diversity in what you sell and how you get it and who your clients are and everything. The next one is you want to be hard to quit. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is if I want to quit Planet Fitness, I got to physically go in there and give them my driver's license and sign something in person. If I move out of state, they're going to say, hey, next time you're in town, come see us and break up with us. I can't quit them unless I go in there and do it. So what does that look like? That's the Planet Fitness model. But what does that look like in other models? It looks like recurring monthly subscriptions that you kind of forget about because it's such a low cost. It's too much of a pain to go and cancel it. You just let it keep going. Gym memberships are like that commonly, but there's other types of services that are just sticky and hard to quit. Think about that for your business model. You may have an in-demand business if customers just, it's really hard for them to find another vendor to satisfy what you do, or it's just so easy to keep spending money with you that they never think about it. Hard to quit, right? And the next one is, you might not like this, but you may have an on-demand business if you pay a lot of taxes. And here's what I mean by that. Business buyers want to make money. And a lot of business owners, they make a lot of money and they don't show that they make money. But the ones that do make a lot of money and show that they make a lot of money, they often pay a lot of taxes. Now, there's ways to make a lot of money and not pay taxes. If you do it right, I highly recommend that. But the majority of people that are making a lot of money are showing that they're making a lot of money. And that creates an on-demand business. Highly, highly recommend that strategy. We talk a lot about that on this channel. Next up is you may have an on-demand business if you have either kind of a weird one here, either a sexy business or a boring business. You don't want to kind of be in that no man's land. And I'll give you a hint. The boring businesses are the long-term play. So here, let me peel this one back a little bit. When's the last time you went to a TCBY? I went to a TCBY probably 20 years ago when they were everywhere, but I couldn't tell you where one is right now. they've really gone the way of the dodo bird. You don't see a lot of TCBYs anymore. That was a very sexy business of its time. They're kind of being replaced right now by boba tea shops and, I don't know, oxygen. Now people go and get oxygen, and that's a whole new sexy business that people are buying into. And for a while, coding businesses were really popular. People were paying above average multiples for sexy businesses. So it's a strategy. It might be short-lived. The boring businesses or non-sexy businesses are a different strategy, and it's a more long-term play. Now we're talking about plumbing, electrical, HVAC, the things you can't buy on Amazon. They're always going to be needed. Boring businesses, you may have an on-demand, in-demand business if you run a boring business. And if you're a business owner, don't take that the wrong way. Business buyers are looking for what they're calling boring businesses. They're not boring to you, but sometimes buyers call them that. The other thing I'll mention is you may have an on-demand business, an in-demand business, if you've been doing this for a long time. You know, greatness takes time, and established businesses that have been around for 10, 15, 20, 30 years are by nature in demand. People are looking for older businesses because you've stood the test of time. To my previous example about the sexy business that everybody wants it right now, but it may be short-lived, the time-tested businesses are in demand because people say, hey, this model has been proven and I don't have to worry about reinventing it. So you may have an on-demand business if you just stood the test of time. Last but not least, if you are getting LOIs, if you're getting solicitations for people to buy your business, that means you have an in-demand business. It's pretty common for business owners who make a lot of money and stand the test of time and have built great teams and great reputations to be starting to get letters of intent, unsolicited offers in the mail. If you're one of those people and you've considered the sale of your business, I would highly recommend you talk to an intermediary like myself. You could call them and talk to them, and they're going to tell you, you don't need a broker. We'll get this deal done. Those dirty brokers are just going to slow down the process. What they're often looking for is to see if they can get a great deal on buying your business. So reach out to a skilled intermediary, figure out what your business is worth, and arm yourself with options for exit, just so you know maybe it is a fair deal, but find out first before you sign that LOI. I'm Neal Isaacs. I am the Raleigh Business Broker. Thanks for watching. Until next time, Malhala.